There's something about relocating to a new neighborhood later in life that naturally makes you reflect on the simple things you hope for. Peace. Friendly neighbors. A calm place where evenings pass quietly, free from unnecessary drama. I remember when my parents moved into a planned community during their retirement, drawn in by perfectly trimmed lawns and neighbors who waved with warm smiles. Back then, the biggest issue anyone faced might have been someone's azaleas growing a little too close to the property line. You never expected things to spiral, not really. That same sense of hope stayed with me when I moved into Willow Creek Estates. The brochures painted a picture of scenic walking trails, spotless streets, and a community built on neighborly respect. What they failed to mention, however, was the subtle tyranny of the HOA, and certainly not the woman who controlled it as if it were her personal empire. I stared at my phone in disbelief as the furious voicemail replayed for the third time. "This is Melissa," the boy screamed. "I can't believe you'd leave a family member stranded like this. Karen told me everything was arranged. I had to book a hotel because of you, and trust me, you're paying for it. Expect to hear from my lawyer." I had absolutely no clue who Melissa was, and I definitely hadn't agreed to let anyone stay in my home. Before I could even process the situation, my email notification chimed. A charge had just hit my credit card, $16,100 at the Lakeside Resort and Spa. The receipt read, "Melissa Winters, guest of Gregory Patterson." That's me. Except I had never approved that charge, and until that moment, I had never even heard the name Melissa Winters. This entire mess began just 3 weeks earlier, when I moved into what I thought would be a peaceful, stress-free phase of my life. Willow Creek Estates had been marketed as a quiet suburban neighborhood designed for comfortable living. What the real estate agent conveniently glossed over, something I now believe was intentional, was the strict, almost oppressive control of the Homeowners Association, or HOA, as everyone called it. And right at the center of it all was Karen Winters. Karen wasn't just the HOA president. She was the enforcer, the judge, and the jury all rolled into one. The very next day after I moved in, she marched up my driveway like a military officer, holding a bright yellow citation. "Your garbage can is visible from the street," she said, her lips stretched into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "That's a violation of Section 4.3 of the HOA bylaws." I apologized politely, moved the can behind the fence, and assumed that would be the end of it. It wasn't. Not even close. Within the first week, she cited me for watering my lawn too often, for keeping a landscaping truck parked in my driveway longer than 6 hours, and, my personal favorite, for having an unapproved doormat color. It was beige. During one of her many surprise inspections, she casually brought up that her niece would be moving into town soon. She mentioned the girl would need a temporary place to stay while getting settled, all while eyeing my 3-bedroom house in a way that immediately made me uneasy. "You've got all that extra space since you live alone," she added with an artificial sweetness. I gave her a polite smile and quickly redirected the conversation. I value my privacy, and the idea of letting a stranger move into my home, especially someone related to the woman who had just cited me over a doormat, was completely out of the question. Then came yesterday. I was at work when my Ring doorbell app sent me a notification, "Motion detected at my front door." I opened the live feed and watched, stunned, as a young woman mid-20s maybe banged aggressively on my door and tried the handle. "Hello, I know you're in there," she shouted, her voice eerily similar to the one I'd later hear in the voicemail. "Aunt Karen said you agreed to let me stay here. I just need the door code." When no one answered, she stormed across the street to my neighbor Jim's house. My doorbell camera captured everything clearly. Jim thankfully told her I was at work and wouldn't be back until later. "Well, he should have left me the code," she snapped. "Aunt Karen promised I could stay here. This is ridiculous. I'm not sleeping in my car, so he can just pay for wherever I end up staying." She then stormed back to her BMW, brand new one with out-of-state plates, and sped off. I was still trying to wrap my head around what I had just seen when my doorbell rang again. This time, it was Karen Winters. She stood there, tight-lipped, holding what looked like an official document. "Gregory," she began, using her signature fake warmth, "I have an invoice here for Melissa's accommodations. Since you failed to honor our arrangement, the HOA board has determined that you are financially responsible for her hotel expenses." She shoved the paper into my hands. "We expect payment within 48 hours to avoid further penalties." I took the document but made no move to invite her inside. "Karen," I said firmly, "there was never any arrangement. I never agreed to let your niece stay in my house." Her smile disappeared instantly, like someone flipping off a switch. "We discussed it when I came over regarding your landscaping violation," she replied sharply. "You said, and I quote, that would be fine. The board has already reviewed the matter. Now, I'm usually a calm person. Life is too short to waste on unnecessary conflict. But something about her certainty, her complete confidence in something that was blatantly untrue, made my blood boil. "I'd like to see the official minutes from that board meeting," I said evenly. "And I'll be contacting the board president directly." Karen's face turned a deep shade of red. "I'm the board president," she snapped. "And you'll find that the bylaws clearly state that verbal agreements with HOA officials are legally binding." With that, she spun around sharply and stormed back across the cul-de-sac. After she left, I immediately pulled up my security footage from the previous few weeks. And there she was, Melissa on 3 different occasions, slowly circling my house and studying the garage keypad. The most recent clip showed her attempting to open my lockbox, repeatedly entering random number combinations. This wasn't just entitled behavior anymore. This was an attempted break-in. I'd had enough. I called the non-emergency police line and reported everything, including the unauthorized charge on my credit card. Then I sent an email to the entire HOA board, all 5 members, attaching links to my doorbell footage along with a copy of the invoice Karen had handed me. Within an hour, I started receiving stunned responses from 3 board members. None of them had any idea about this supposed arrangement. One of them, Thomas Chen, the board's treasurer, even called me directly. "Greg, I'm really sorry," he said. "Karen's been acting independently for months, but this goes too far. We're organizing an emergency board meeting tonight, and I strongly suggest you file a formal police report." The following morning, while I was working from home, 2 police officers arrived at Karen's house. I watched quietly from my window as she waved her arms wildly, clearly arguing, her face turning deeper red with every passing second. About 20 minutes later, they came to my door. "Mr. Verl, Patterson," the female officer said, "we've spoken with Mrs. Winters and her niece Melissa. Based on the evidence you've provided, along with her statements, we're proceeding with charges." "Charges?" I repeated. The male officer nodded. "Mrs. Winters claims there was a misunderstanding, but the credit card fraud is clear-cut, and we have Melissa on video attempting to access your home." "What happens now?" I asked. "They've both been taken into custody," he replied. "Karen Winters is being charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, impersonating an HOA official for financial gain, and filing false documents. Melissa is facing charges of attempted trespassing, credit card fraud, and filing a false police report." Apparently, Melissa had even tried to accuse me of housing discrimination earlier that same morning. "Housing discrimination? I've never even met her," I said. "Yeah," the officer responded dryly. "The sergeant didn't believe it either, especially after reviewing the footage of her trying to break into your home." Later that afternoon, the HOA board held an emergency neighborhood meeting. Thomas Chen stood in front of a room filled with shocked residents and delivered the announcement. Effective immediately, Karen Winters was removed from the board and permanently banned from serving in any HOA role. Investigations uncovered numerous violations, unjustified citations, unauthorized fines, and decisions made without board approval. All recent penalties issued by Karen were now under review and expected to be dismissed. As for Karen and Melissa, consequences came quickly. Karen was sentenced to 18 months of probation, a $150 fine, and 200 hours of community service. The judge showed little sympathy, especially after discovering this wasn't her first abuse of HOA authority. She had pulled similar schemes in 2 previous neighborhoods. Melissa, however, faced a harsher outcome. She received 6 months in county jail, 3 years of probation, and was ordered to pay full restitution for the hotel expenses and damages. When the sentence was announced, Melissa broke down in tears. Karen, meanwhile, stood completely still, her usual smug confidence completely gone as the bailiff escorted her out of the courtroom. The last thing I heard her say was, "This is all a misunderstanding. Don't you know who I am?" At Willow Creek Estates, we definitely knew now. If seeing justice finally catch up to Karen gave you even a little satisfaction, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps support the channel. And if you're here for more wild HOA drama and real-life neighborhood justice, make sure to subscribe and stick around. Trust me, you won't believe what's coming next.